Language, science, magic, woo-woo, or does it really work? What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Unconscious Communication Secrets with myself, Muneer, and today I'm going to be talking to you about unconscious communication secrets. And specifically, we're going to be talking about one thing in particular. Can one word really double your persuasion? Yep, that's right. So, hypnotic language, something I am extremely passionate about and a subject that I love. But when I started getting into hypnotic language, I started thinking, like, how does this all really work? And so I did a lot of research because to a lot of people, hypnotic language seems like a bunch of magic. To some, it seems like a bit of woo woo or whatever. But I wanted to know, does this work? Like, are there studies? How does it all happen? So let's talk about it for a second. Um, Now, the analogy that I like to give is if you go to a different country and you want to order water in a different country. Now, if you speak the language of that country when you order water, you're more likely to get what you want. The more you speak of that language, the more things that you're going to get. And our unconscious mind has a preferred way of speaking, a preferred sort of logic to it. And when you are able to speak the logic of the mind, then just like when you're in a foreign country and you speak the words, you'll get a result. Now, does it mean that if you don't speak the language, you don't get a result? No, you still get a result, but it increases your chances. So let's talk about this for a sec, real quick. Move on. I want you to think of the times in your life where perhaps you've asked someone something and you didn't get a result. And someone comes along and they ask the same person of the same exact thing. They've just phrased it slightly differently. And that person gets a result. What made the difference? Sometimes it could be just one or two words. And so this is where hypnotic language kind of comes into play. It's not something that you don't do. It's something that you already do. You just don't do deliberately. So when you don't use it, you don't use it deliberately. And when you do use it, you don't use it deliberately either. And so hypnotic language is not crazy different language than you're already using. You already use these patterns. When lawyers create a compelling case, sometimes they use hypnotic language. They just don't realize that they are using it sometimes. A politician, when they get you to feel a certain way about something, half the time they're using hypnotic language. Every PR story that you've ever seen or heard, every positive spin example typically uses a little bit of hypnotic language. Hey Laura, what's up from LA in the house? Laura Yee, how you doing, dude? Great to see you as always. Thanks for tuning in. So now, why is learning hypnotic language so powerful? Well, ultimately, your ability to use hypnotic language or use persuasive language can help you to win arguments, be persuasive, and a whole lot more. A lot of time when some people learn hypnotic language, they don't even know they're learning hypnotic language. They think they're learning selling language or lawyer language or compelling argument. They're all the same thing. But hypnotic language just has a couple of nuances, but at its foundation, all the same. So let's look at this. Can one word really double your persuasion? Can one word get you to nearly double the results that you get. Let's look at this. In the 70s, Harvard did a study about this, and they conducted this study in a library. Do you guys remember back in the days when libraries were a big thing? Remember, the internet wasn't like, people didn't just used to order books off Amazon and research online. People used to go to libraries a lot. So in the 70s, Harvard did a study in the library where people would go and also to use the photocopy machine. And, like I said, everyone used to go to the library back in those days. And they'd have long lines for the photocopy machine. And what would happen is they had these three scenarios where one person would go up and he'd try and cut in the line. As we say in the Middle East, try to get a wasta. So yeah, they'd walk up to the front of the line, and in this huge line, they'd walk up to the front of the line and they'd say, excuse me, I have to, excuse me, I have 5 pages. Can I use the Xerox machine? Like, they're trying to cut in the front of the line. So, and, they were trying to see how successful they'd be by trying to cut in the front of the line. So the first group of people, they said, excuse me, I want to make photocopies. Can I cut in the line? Now, not very successful. About 60% of people just went, okay, all right, fine. Now, in the next scenario, they went and they said, hi, excuse me, I have to make copies. Can I use I have 5 pages. Can I use the Xerox machine? Because I have to make copies. Now, check this out. There is a huge line to use the photocopy machine. Every single person in that line has to make copies. So when you go and say, excuse me, can I cut in the line because I have to make copies? What do you think everyone else in this line is there for? Right? And then in the third scenario, they said, excuse me, I have 5 pages. Can I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush? So they have a legitimate excuse. So here's the crazy thing. So when the person said, excuse me, they tried to cut in the line and they gave a valid reason. They said, because I'm in a rush. 94% of the time, this person was successful. 94%. When they had no reason whatsoever, they just said, hi, can I cut in the line? They were 60% successful. Okay? But here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy, crazy, crazy thing. When they said, excuse me, can I photocopy? Can I use the photocopier? Can I cut in the line because I have to make photocopies? The worst excuse ever in the whole world. They were successful 93% of the time. 93%. No excuse, 60%. When they have valid excuse, 94%. When they don't have an excuse, but they use the word because, when they justify it, even though it was the most terrible of justifications, they had a 93% success rate. 93%. And so, like one word, I'm telling you, one word. Okay, it's not double. I mean, 60 to 93%, but that's a huge jump in one sentence, right? Now, very quickly, I want to just give a shout out. Hey, Miwa, hi from Japan. I love this. We've got like Japan, we've got LA, we've got, we usually have like a whole bunch of people sign the book in and out. Yeah, Laura. Yeah, back in the day, like, let's not tell people about that. Like, people were like, you remember those days? Signing the books in and out of a library. Yes, that's what we used to do. So one word. And so this is a Harvard study that they did, and it's about how our brains like to justify things. And ultimately, when it comes to hypnotic language is about using these exact principles, understanding how the mind works, how the mind likes justification. And so the word because, it's a word that we use every single day, but yet it's one of the most powerful hypnotic words of persuasion because we use it every day. Do you see what I did there? Did anyone catch it? Did you guys catch it? I used it very sly. But, and so that's just one word. When we talk about hypnotic language, it's about understanding all the different words, the hypnotic words that you can find, and then stacking them one on top of the other so that you get a greater result. Because one word isn't going to make the biggest difference sometimes, but the more that you stack, the more the results that you're going to get. And so when I teach hypnotic language, I'll just show you one of the I have like a bunch of cards that I use, a bunch of language patterns that when you stack them together, just create compelling unconscious arguments. Now, can you make someone do something that they don't want to do? No. But can you double your persuasion efforts? Yes. You see, hypnotic language is about making you a lot more persuasive. But if someone is dead set against something, then you're not going to be able to convince that person to do everything. Hi, Omar. Great. Thanks for tuning in. Yes, it is super interesting. This is something I'm very passionate about. So, now a lot of hypnotic language comes from studying a gentleman called Milton Erickson. And Milton Erickson was basically the father of modern hypnotherapy. And he spent a lot of time, because he had polio, in a wheelchair, and just studied people and studied what would get results when it comes to communication, and using language patterns and stories to create hypnotic journeys that would bypass critical thinking and create amazingly compelling scenarios. And using those, he used it to help people overcome some of the greatest challenges in their lives. And using that, he didn't use it for sales as such, but isn't helping someone overcome an addiction or a great problem they've had all their lives. Kind of like selling. You're persuading, but you're just persuading at an unconscious level, which is a lot more powerful. So, now, what I'd like to do is, for those of you that are watching, I'd love to offer you a free resource if you'd love to learn more about hypnotic language. You can go to unconsciouscommunicationsecrets.com and just select the influence and persuasion option, and you can get a gift. There's an infographic that I'll share with you, the 11 hypnotic power words of persuasion, and you can understand what are the top 11 hypnotic power words of persuasion and start to use that in your life. Also, if you want to understand hypnotic power words of persuasion and the work of Milton Erickson, definitely do check out my NLP introduction, which is happening on Wednesday at 7:30 in the UAE. And that's, you can go to uaenlp.com and you can find out a lot more about that. So, phrase that pays. The phrase of today is: learn the language of the mind and notice the rewards you find. So learn the language of the mind and notice the rewards you find. So that's it for this episode of Unconscious Communication Secrets. Don't forget, if you want to learn more about NLP, this Wednesday, it's a free webinar, completely free. I talk about NLP and what that is. Basically, when you learn hypnotic language and you learn something called the Milton model, which is using Milton Erickson's language patterns. I talk about that in NLP. That's what NLP teaches. So this Wednesday, it's 7:30 UAE time. But other than that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Unconscious Communication Secrets. And remember the phrase of today: learn the language of the mind and notice the rewards you find. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/Muneer. And I will catch you on another episode very, very soon. Peace out, one love, and I'll see you guys real soon.